Hey guys. All right. First of all, I'm recording early morning. It's still dark, but it's my favorite kind of day. It's a rainy day. And I don't know. I think as a New Englander, I think people are naturally drawn to bad weather because we have I know most of the country is fast changing weather, but our weather, it goes all over the map. And I just love bad weather. But I just realized this morning, I put Mav in daycare so I could get some peace. The dog's driving me crazy right now. And bad weather, I have always loved because I'm we get to stay inside. And so I always resist this, it's so nice, get outside. And I get out in all kinds of weather. But I think, I don't know, as a mom, do you guys feel that way? Yeah, okay, we can't go outside. Yeah, they're going to be up my ass all day, but I get to stay in and maybe do projects that I've been working on. Okay. Anyway, that my heart's already happy. So I want to circle back to a little bit more about gratitude in kids, especially as we're going to ramp up the month of December here. And I also want to start with a concept I call don't bank behavior. So this comes into play a lot in December. And it can come in in the summer too, when we're doing kind of fun things. And what it is we do something out of the ordinary, something super special for our kids. And then we bank that. So what we do is we're unconsciously, we don't realize we're doing this, or subconsciously, I should say, we expect them to be good later. We're I am doing something good for you now. And so I want you to be good later. So we unconsciously go into this, I don't know if it's on or sub, but we go into this negotiation that our children are unaware of and incapable of actually following through with. So what I mean is you go do a special holiday thing. They get a hot chocolate with ice, with whipped cream, which is out of your norm, or you go, anything special. And then they have a total meltdown when it's time to leave, or an hour into it, they're falling apart. And you're but I did this thing for you. We did this really nice thing. And now this is how you act. Yeah, they can't bank their behavior. Okay. So it just never works out. And I find during the holidays, again, so much of the holidays is expectations. And we have so many expectations that get wrecked. And so one thing I would really encourage you to do is spend a little time, I don't know, if you get up early and journal or spend a little time by yourself, or that's what I've always done. So that's my time to be reflective, or when you're on a walk, maybe. What are your expectations? And try to dig deep. And if you're actually working with a therapist or something, this would be a really cool place to find them, because we have expectations based on our childhood, based on wounds or traditions. We have very explicit expectations often that we aren't totally aware of. And so we try to play those out. And the reality is that unless everybody is, especially our spouse, right? Or our family members, our very close family members, if they're unaware of the expectations and it's something they're supposed to meet, an expectation they're supposed to meet, and the kids don't know the expectation, this is where reality comes in, and your hopes get dashed, your plans get dashed, okay? And so happiness equals reality minus expectations. Okay. And the funny thing is, again, as I think in this area, in the month of December, our expectations are under the surface. So banking behavior is a huge one. Expecting your child to be good later because you're providing a cool thing right now. And it just never plays out. And then I just want to go back a little bit to gratitude. I talked about this in the holiday episode, but the thing with gratitude is kids are literally unable to see the world as it is. Okay. So they're in this sort of magical bubble. So somebody in our online group in the Crap Cafe had said she's struggling with nine. Her son is 9, and it kind of seems all over the map. And I always say 9 is such a magical age because 9 is, in a lot of philosophies, 9 is when the veil is lifted, meaning your child sees the world in a bigger frame as opposed to the magical world of childhood. And I always say my big thing about 9 is when Pascal was 9, wanted to see a movie. I said, what do you want to see? And he said, oh, let's go to see Paddington Bear or American Sniper. And I was like, oh my God, that's so 9. It's like, they're like half big kid, half still little kid. Right. So, when that's about an appropriate age where we can really start to expect like true gratitude to happen. It's really hard for kids to step outside their own world, even in the preteen years and the teen years, right? Like kids only know what they know. So expecting them to be grateful for what they're receiving in their own life is a big expectation because they only know what they know. And so like I grew up really poor. So I'm not poor. I mean, I'm not rich, but we're comfortable. And Pascal has never wanted for anything. So for me to expect gratitude because I didn't have the things that he now has, and expect gratitude from that is asinine because he never had the other thing. They've only known what they know. And there's a saying, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. We tend to judge that, right? We tend to judge like a rich kid throwing a fit over a poor kid because the poor kid has it harder, but the rich kid doesn't know. You can't expect a rich kid to know what it's like to be poor, right? So we tend to judge those, but the worst thing that's ever happened to you is the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And I often think this plays into tantrums, right? When you're 2, the worst thing that's ever happened to you is your mom freaking opened your yogurt for you. So even though we look at them, we're like, oh my God, this is like so not a thing. There are kids starving, right? It's the worst thing that ever happened to you. So when we look at gratitude, and I think, I talked about it before Thanksgiving because the holidays just tend to ramp up in the holiday episode. But the more important thing I want to talk about in December is we really start talking about it because of kids like rejecting presents or, not being grateful for the event or not being grateful for the thing we took them to. And so they just don't have the capability of that extended that somebody has something worse than me, so I should be grateful for the things I have. This is their life, right? So they get what they get on a daily basis. So that being said, we were really poor, and I don't even know that I can speak from a poor kid's mind. I don't remember ever being like tremendously grateful. Like kids are still going to be pissed off if they don't get the thing they wanted for Christmas. I mean, we'd be sad because we knew I guess like after 10, we really knew the hardship my mom was going through. So like we would be sad, but we wouldn't show it. We wouldn't like put that on her because we knew she was going through a really hard time. Well, the whole family was. But yeah, I think this really comes into play because people think that kids should have more gratitude. They don't. I will say this. Pascal went to a preschool. I often talk about it. He went to a preschool that was in downtown Providence. It wasn't officially Waldorf or Montessori, but kind of the same tenants. And they didn't have an outside space. So they all walked around the city. He knew downtown Providence better than I did. And it was wonderful. They went to the library every day. They knew all the local things. He really was like, oh, if you go to that place, they'll give you a little treat. He really knew the lay of the land. And that meant that they had exposure to homeless people. And so there was one man who kind of hung around, I don't know this officially, but there seemed to be like sort of territories. And this one man was definitely schizophrenic and often floridly psychotic. And so one day we were driving up to school, and he said something mean about this guy. And I said, whoa, absolutely not. I said, first of all, that man doesn't have a home. So we're not being at all mean about that. And then I could tell in the moment, because I worked with schizophrenic people, I could tell in the moment that this guy was in an episode. He was floridly psychotic at the time. So I said, hey, listen, so with this guy, I said, I used to work with people like that, Pascal. And like this man, see how he's talking to himself and see how he's talking to people that aren't there. There's something wrong with his brain. It's called schizophrenia. And it makes him think that people are here. And so he seems like he's a little crazy, but so we don't go near him when he's like this because we don't know, he's not really in our world. And so he could, maybe push us or be mean to us. So we leave him alone when he's in that space. But there's going to be times where he's not. And so we kind of kept our eye on this guy. And I one day I could tell he was not in an episode. I said, let's go buy him a coffee. So we bought him a coffee, and we went up to him and I started talking to him, and he was very nice, very grateful for the coffee. And so him being grateful for the coffee showed Pascal what gratitude is. And so we started talking about this man, and it opened up this bigger conversation about homeless, mental illness. And then I realized that just that exposure made Pascal a little more grateful. It opened his eyes to another kind of way of life, another kind of person, another person who can get stuck in not having a home, how that typically happens for people, what mental illness truly means. And then Pascal was just always so curious. So then that's when we started to visit a soup kitchen downtown on a weekly basis. Again, not during the holidays. The holidays, they get everybody doing their holiday guilt trip, and you're not going to build gratitude if you go to the soup kitchen on Thanksgiving morning. It's too intermittent, and maybe you check your box. And I get pretty mad about this, having worked in social services, because people kind of show up when they want to show up, which obviously, yes, you have that right, but it's always around the holidays, and I always think it's to make you feel better. It's not to make the person you're serving feel better. And being in service is the best thing you can do for your kids of any kind. Okay. So being in service does not have to be a soup kitchen or a food bank. Being in service, my grandmother was in the Alzheimer's unit before she died for about 5 years. Pascal loved going there. He worked really well with Alzheimer's and dementia people. And because it was a locked unit, the people who could walk around, my grandmother couldn't, they would steal each other's stuff. They would steal each other's candy. And, they could only do so much, the nurses on the unit. And so Pascal would go, and he knew everybody's stuffed animals. He knew whose shoes were whose. And he would go into everybody's room and return things. And he would sit, and he had the patience of a saint at 6 years old. He would sit with them, and, they would tell the same story over and over again. And we talked about that, and he would act interested every single time. And that was of service. Yeah. And so in being in service of people is taking a population that is in a deficit somehow, I think, and you show up for them. So keep that in mind. Nursing homes are a wonderful place to be in service of. And it paid off. So my sister-in-law, when my brother started dating my sister-in-law, her mom was beginning a decline with dementia. And so her name is Anna, and we called her Anna Banana. And so at one Thanksgiving, Pascal sat next to Anna the Banana, and poor thing, she was cycling through, how old are you? You're so cute. He sat with that woman for like 2 hours, and she was in a repetitive loop, and he literally just acted interested. He said, 6 years old, I'm in first grade, and he went through the whole thing. And so again, that's like how you build gratitude. And by the way, this was all accidental. I don't think I'm great. This was not a plan I thought out. I just know in hindsight that this worked out really well. Okay. And so then what Pascal and I would do is we would, this soup kitchen, we would visit regularly, and he really got to see a mixed crowd of mental illness, homelessness, people in need, and really sat down with them. And because he was so young, there was no, he didn't see a barrier, it wasn't these people were less than, he had no judgment. And so he was so interested in, oh my God, they love this kid. And they would bring him what he was so surprised, especially as we would ramp up to the holidays, or he would tell people it was his birthday. People gave him gifts. They gave him gifts that were tiny, something they found, a coin they found, something that they were giving at another shelter. And it was so wonderful. And then one thing that he really learned through this was gratitude, because he was like, Mom, they have nothing. They don't have a home, and they're giving me something. Like, this is crazy. And so he had this deep-seated gratitude. And then, like, before the holidays, so we would go on the holidays because we were regular. And so Pascal would go around the house, and he would look for things. We bought like, socks and the bags you give to people who are, don't have homes. But he would look for special things that he wanted to give them from the home, not things that we were discarding, but things that would be, a little ping for him, right? A little thing that he would miss, or that he liked. So he gave something of value. And so it was just a wonderful thing. So I highly encourage you to do that. And it's funny because even though I've worked with that population, of course you get nervous. You get nervous about bed bugs or scabies. You get nervous about, somebody could instantly go into a a floridly psychotic episode. And so it can be like it can be a little scary, but it's a wonderful way to bridge your kid to the world and to build a little bit of that gratitude year round. Because again, it's not going to show up at Christmas. Christmas is going to opening presents. If you do any sort of holiday that involves presents, it's going to bring out the greediness. It just is. And I think that's okay. We temper it one present at a time, be nice. And we try to temper it and correct it, but just expect it. It's just going to bring out the excitement and more. And kids are just not at their best. And so if they are, wonderful. If they're not, expect it, curb it, temper it. But again, manage the expectations. All right. This is Fuzzy and Dark. So I guess it's a little cozy, right? All right, guys. As always, I know a lot of you listen to this, but I know an equal amount watch it on YouTube. So whenever I refer to things, I know you listening can't see it, but the people on YouTube can. So my big illuminating light went off, and so now it's very fuzzy and cozy and dark. All right, guys. As always, rock on. Put your phone down.